Imagine finally getting the golden ticket to this elite, highly coveted institution. You pack your bags, you arrive at the gates, you take a deep breath of that rarefied air, only to realize the curriculum isn't actually designed to educate you.
Right. It's designed to break you.
Exactly. It is designed to break you. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at Chapter 4 of Pete Hollis's novel, So the Past Does Not Die.
And it is a heavy one.
Oh, absolutely. And to really understand the mechanics of what's happening in this text, we're filtering it through a WAEC and NICO literature in English analysis guide.
Which is, it provides a really vital framework for us. For those who might be unfamiliar, WAEC stands for the West African Examinations Council, and NICO is the National Examinations Council.
Right, major testing bodies.
Exactly. They're the definitive standardized testing bodies for millions of students across West Africa. So reading this novel through their official study guide means we aren't just looking at, fiction.
We're looking at the real-world application.
Yeah. We're looking at how this text is actively taught as a masterclass on regional sociopolitics, systemic corruption, and, well, survival.
And the stakes are just incredibly high from the very first page. We're following a young woman named Fina. She has just arrived at the CC campus, which is perched up in these mountains, overlooking the capital city of Freetown.
And she's carrying a lot right now.
A massive amount of emotional baggage, yeah. Back in her home village, she feels deeply responsible for facilitating this affair involving a local man, Pat Heddle. So she sees this university degree as her absolute salvation. It's her ticket to America.
It's her way out.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this, because the geography of the campus is the first major mechanism the author uses to establish the power dynamics.
Well, the geography is everything here. The students literally look down on the city below them. They even refer to their campus as Mount Olympus.
Which is just so incredibly arrogant.
Totally. They are living on government and European scholarships, so they're completely insulated from the daily economic struggles of the general population down in Freetown.
And the study guide puts a heavy emphasis on that Mount Olympus metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at that separation and I wonder, if it's less about prestige and more about enforced ignorance.
How do you?
Well, they call it rarefied air. But when you isolate young people and you hand them prestige without any accountability, and you separate them from the reality of their own country, you aren't building leaders. You're just incubating arrogance. It's like an exclusive country club where the entry fee is just turning a blind eye to reality.
That's a great way to put it.
And Fina walks into this space expecting a sanctuary of learning, right? But instead, she's immediately forced to navigate this incredibly dense maze of massive, fragile egos.
What's fascinating here is that incubation of arrogance is precisely what the literary analysis highlights. The illusion of Mount Olympus acts as a mask.
Right. Hiding the reality.
Exactly. It's the shiny exterior that completely obscures the high cost of ambition within those walls. The students walk with this swagger because they genuinely believe they've transcended the rules of the society below them.
But that perceived transcendence is dangerous.
Very dangerous. It sets the stage for a deeply predatory environment. When people believe they are, untouchable gods on a mountain, the mundane rules of morality just no longer apply to them.
Think about a time you joined a prestigious group or started a coveted job, only to realize the internal culture was just entirely different from the shiny exterior. That's what Fina is dealing with. And that lack of morality doesn't stay confined to the lecture halls.
No, it definitely doesn't.
It seeps right under the doors of the dormitories. So Fina shares a room with a young woman named Mamuna, and Mamuna starts dating this man named Simeon, who openly boasts about being from a traditional ruling family.
Which he uses as a shield.
Exactly. That supposed royal lineage becomes his license to do whatever he wants, and that introduces Fina to a campus practice known as the exile.
It's such a sterile, almost academic term for what is actually a blatant displacement.
Right. It's campus slang for when your roommate physically locks you out of your own room for hours so they can use the space for sex. Fina is literally forced out of her sanctuary. She's just sitting in the hallways. But the situation escalates from a gross inconvenience into profound violence.
The scene at the door.
Yeah. Fina returns to the dorm late one night during one of these exiles, and she hears Simeon viciously beating Mamuna through the door.
It's a hard scene to read.
It is. She hears the punches landing, she hears the crying. Fina reaches for the doorknob, but then she stops. She drops her hand and she just walks away.
And the narrative device Hollis uses in that exact moment is fascinating. Fina is stopped by a childhood memory from her home in Talabo.
The folklore story.
Yes. When she was a little girl, she heard the sounds of domestic violence coming from a neighboring house. And to keep her from going outside and investigating, her mother, Nabu, told her this terrifying folklore story.
Right, about the spirits.
She claimed the noise wasn't an aunt and uncle fighting. She said it was old Papa Wind and his one-legged wife, violently tearing through the night, searching for their lost daughter, Woohoo. Yeah, her mother warned her that if she went outside, those spirits would snatch her up.
So what does this all mean? Because I struggle with Fina's reaction here. It is deeply uncomfortable to watch our protagonist stand outside a door, listen to another woman being beaten, and just choose to do nothing.
It's a complex moment for the reader, for sure.
It is. It's so tempting to view this through a modern lens as this massive moral failure. It's a severe case of the bystander effect. But considering that childhood memory paints a very different picture.
Exactly. She's not just ignoring it.
Right. Fina isn't just ignoring the violence. She is reacting to deeply ingrained, survival-based trauma conditioning. Her mother didn't just tell her a ghost story. She trained Fina to treat male violence as an unstoppable supernatural force, like a force of nature that you cannot intervene against. You can only hide from it.
And that psychological mechanism is vital to understanding the broader themes of the WAEC and NICO guide. The analysis specifically connects this localized, intensely personal violence in the dorm room to the macro theme of systemic patriarchy.
It scales it way up.
It does. The story of Old Papa Win serves as literary foreshadowing. It illustrates how societies literally manufacture myths to enforce silence around abuse.
By making it mystical.
Exactly. By framing domestic terror as something mystical and dangerous to the observer, the society protects the abuser and paralyzes the bystander. Fina's inaction isn't a lapse in judgment. It is a successful execution of her cultural programming.
Which is just chilling.
It is. The text is warning you that violence on this campus isn't a glitch in the system. It is the underlying frequency.
And private silence around violence almost always creates a permission structure for public cruelty. We see this transition seamlessly from the dorm room to a public stadium.
The football match.
Yeah, there's an inter-hall football match on campus.
Yeah.
Milton Markey Hall defeats Lightfoot Boston Hall 5-1. The Milo drum band is playing. The crowd is ecstatic. People are dancing. It seems like a perfectly normal, celebratory collegiate moment.
Right, until the crowd's attention pivots. Fina is standing on the sidelines with her boyfriend, Kemi. And Fina is a Fula woman.
Yeah.
The Fula people are an ethnic group heavily involved in the trading and merchant sectors of Sierra Leone. And down in the capital city, below the campus, severe socioeconomic crises are unfolding.
The real world bleeding in.
Exactly. The price of petrol has skyrocketed, inflation is rampant, and the Fula people are being violently scapegoated. They're being physically beaten in the streets, blamed by the wider public for ruining the economy and hoarding wealth.
Even though many, like Fina, were born in Sierra Leone and have every right to be there.
Precisely.
So the jubilant crowd at the football match suddenly turns their focus entirely on Fina. They surround her and start singing this mocking, venomous song about how Fula women don't know how to read watches, how they only understand the tech sound of the ticking.
It's pure intimidation.
And Fina is terrified. She turns to her boyfriend, Kemi, for support, pointing out that her people are literally being hunted in the streets of Freetown. And Kemi completely dismisses her fear. He laughs and tells her it's just a song.
Which is just wild.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let's pause on that mechanism for a second. Because Kemi's reaction demands scrutiny. When he says it's just a song, he is gaslighting her.
Totally.
He's intentionally stripping away the context of the violence. It reminds me of how internet trolls operate today, framing targeted harassment as just a joke. It's like how a pressure valve works on an overheating boiler.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
The institution, and the country at large, is boiling over with economic frustration about petrol prices and lack of opportunity. But instead of directing that rage upward at the government or the university administration that is actually failing them, the system vents that toxic steam downward onto the most vulnerable minority target available.
Because it's easier.
Exactly. The crowd isn't angry about watches. They are systematically purging their own anxieties by terrorizing Fina.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, his dismissal is a textbook example of alienation. The WAEC and NECO study guide categorizes this under the theme of ethnicity and alienation.
And the guide is very impartial about this, right?
Very impartial. It impartially analyzes the text's political backdrop, noting how the crowd uses a microaggression, this song about watches, to inflict macro-level political intimidation.
They shrink her down.
Yes. Fina is instantly transformed into an internal exile. She is stripped of her identity as a student and reduced entirely to her ethnicity. She becomes a foreigner in her own country, forced to constantly defend her humanity in a space that claims to be a citadel of learning.
And because she finds absolutely no solidarity socially, Fina attempts to retreat into the one thing she believes she can control, which is her academics.
She just tries to focus.
Right, she resolves to put her head down, survive the curriculum, get her degree, and escape to America. But the academic structure on Mount Olympus is just as corrupted as the social structure. Fina runs headfirst into a horrifying academic gauntlet.
And it starts with the one professor who actually tries to teach.
Uncle Sam. Dr. Samuel Prescott, who is an American zoology professor, he writes encouraging notes like intelligent on Fina's papers. He offers multiple choice exams. He allows makeup tests for struggling students. He actually wants his students to comprehend the material.
Which sounds great, right? But consider how the institution reacts to his methods. The department is controlled by older, UK-educated professors who absolutely despise Uncle Sam.
They hate him.
They really do. When Uncle Sam's students take their final exams and all of them score in the 90s, these established professors are outraged. They declare a 100% pass rate to be disgraceful.
Which is just crazy logic.
It is. They argue it shows a complete lack of respect for the learning curve. They view high marks not as a sign of successful teaching, but as a devaluation of the institution's prestige. So they fire him.
And that rationale is incredibly revealing. These UK-trained professors are operating on a philosophy of extreme scarcity. They believe that for their own status to mean anything, the majority of the student body must fail.
It's an exclusionary tactic.
Left over from the colonial era.
Yeah.
By firing the one educator who operates on a philosophy of abundance, who actually wants students to succeed, the university effectively mandates failure. The university isn't engaged in teaching. It's engaged in hazing.
That's exactly what it is.
It intentionally creates a bottleneck. And that bottleneck forces desperate students into the hands of predators just to survive the curriculum.
Which leads Fina directly to Professor Thompson Genehan, universally known on campus as Tomp Organic. Fina is struggling desperately with organic chemistry. She goes to his office for help.
And does she get it?
Not at all. Instead of teaching her, he delivers a 5-minute tirade about how modern students spend too much time partying. He blows the dust off an archaic textbook, shoves it across the desk at her, and dismisses her.
Unbelievable.
He's a pure gatekeeper, hoarding knowledge rather than dispensing it.
So she tries another avenue. She goes to a professor named DK. Now, DK actually understands the chemistry and can explain it. But the cost of his tutelage is navigating his constant amorous advances.
Right, the systemic corruption.
Yeah, he uses his academic leverage to try and extract sexual favors. Fina has to show up to his office wearing overly loose, unflattering clothing. She literally has to physically maneuver desks between them to create a barrier against his advances while trying to learn organic chemistry.
As the WAEC guide points out, this highlights how systemic corruption works here. The men in power exploit their positions, forcing female students to trade favors for survival. It is a closed loop of exploitation.
The system is broken by design.
Exactly. The system removes the helpful professors, installs apathetic gatekeepers, and empowers sexual predators. And this systemic corruption pushes Fina to an absolute breaking point.
She gets desperate.
Very desperate. Facing certain failure in organic chemistry, she turns to her final option, which is Kizzy. Kizzy is the senior lab technician. He's been trapped in a master's program for 6 years. He is deeply cynical, and he actually knows next to nothing about the chemistry he is supposed to be tutoring her in.
But he has bait.
He does. He claims to have access to leaked exam questions. 2 nights before her final, he tells Fina to come to his flat to get them.
So Fina slips out of her dorm room in the middle of the night. She steps outside, and she walks into a massive literal storm. The wind is howling, the rain is blinding. She's struggling through the brush to reach his apartment when a car's headlights suddenly sweep across the road.
Which panics her.
Right. Startled and terrified of being caught out at night, Fina hurls herself over a railing to hide. She drops down into the dark and lands hard on a granite boulder, severely twisting her ankle.
And as she is lying there in the wet brush, in immense physical pain, the novel shifts gears into this stunning sequence of magical realism.
The visions.
Yes. Fina begins to experience intense, vivid visions of her ancestors. First, she sees her deceased father, Amadou. He appears in a black void, wearing a flowing blue gown. He questions why she is taking this difficult path and urges her to submit to the will of Allah.
And right after him, her grandmother, Baramusu, materializes. Her grandmother is fiercely adamant that the Sakul path, the Western educational path, has brought their family nothing but misery.
She's very forceful about it.
She is. She demands that Fina follow the traditional path of her people and warns her not to cut the rope that ties her to her ancestry.
This raises an important question, though, because this sequence addresses the core symbolism of the novel's title, So the Path Does Not Die.
How so?
The WAEC and Nico analysis highlights this storm as the crucial climax of Fina's journey. The path represents the trajectory of one's life, which is constantly being pulled by the gravity of ancestral expectations and societal demands.
That makes a lot of sense.
And the imagery of the physical storm perfectly mirrors Fina's internal and external chaos. The collision of her fierce ambition with the predatory reality of the campus reaches its tragic climax right here.
I look at those visions on the boulder as a psychological breaking point. It's an emergency brake. Fina's subconscious knows exactly what Kizzy is. It knows what is waiting for her in that flat.
Her mind is trying to stop her.
Exactly. The clash between her desperate ambition to get to America and the terrifying reality of the campus has become too much for her psyche to bear. Her own mind and ancestry are physically manifesting to block her from walking into a trap, screaming at her to turn back.
Yet the tragedy is that her ambition overrides her intuition. She ignores the warnings of the storm and her ancestors. She pushes forward anyway. She claws her way back up to the road, hobbles through the rain, and enters Kizzy's flat.
And the trap snaps shut. Kizzy never had the leaked exam questions. He never had any intention of helping her pass organic chemistry. He uses her desperation to lure her in, he drags her inside, and he violently assaults her.
It is the brutal, inevitable culmination of the power dynamics the author has meticulously built. The illusion of Mount Olympus is irrevocably shattered here.
All the toxic elements combined.
Yeah, the gatekeeping, the patriarchy, the silent complicity, it all converges in this single act of violence.
Fina manages to escape his flat. She hobbles all the way down the mountain, leaving the campus behind, moving through the city until she reaches her mother's home, where she collapses. Now, the aftermath of this assault is where Fina undergoes a radical transformation.
She doesn't report it.
No, she never formally reports the assault. The university machinery, desperate to protect its own reputation, immediately begins churning out a rumor. The whisper around the campus becomes that the pressure just made her go bonkers, that she lost her mind and quit.
That narrative is incredibly convenient for the institution. By framing her departure as a mental health failure, they completely absolve the corrupt academic structure and the predators operating within it.
But the truly fascinating part is how Fina responds. She lets them believe this insanity narrative. She doesn't waste a single ounce of her energy trying to correct the rumor or fight for justice within the university system.
The study guide tracks a profound character evolution here. Fina transitions from a naive scholar hoping for a fair system into a hardened survivor and realist.
She sees the reality now.
Exactly. She realizes that the system was never broken. It was functioning exactly as it was designed to.
I just admire Fina's incredible, cold pragmatism here. Drawing on a key quote from the text, you see that Fina realizes the trick to life isn't complacency, but seeking out opportunities. She doesn't fight the false narrative. She just pivots.
She completely emotionally detaches from the institution.
Yeah. Instead of returning to the mountain, she starts spending time in the reading room at the U.S. Embassy. She sits there, reading magazines, quietly observing the visa applicants, studying how the American bureaucratic system works.
She is gathering intelligence for her next move. She networks with the librarian at the embassy, secures a letter of introduction, and uses it to land a highly lucrative job at an American church mission in Koidu.
Which is far away from the campus.
Right, Koidu is a diamond-rich region far away from the capital and the university. She leverages the Koidu mission to carve out a brand new independent path.
She entirely bypasses the local power structures that tried to destroy her. At this mission, she secures her own independent apartment. Most importantly, she is working directly alongside Americans, strategically positioning herself closer to her ultimate goal of getting to America.
It's a brilliant move.
It is. She doesn't just survive the destruction of her original path. She takes a machete and hacks an entirely new one through the brush.
We've followed Fina through a harrowing sociological landscape. She climbed to the illusory heights of Mount Olympus, expecting a meritocracy.
And found a nightmare instead.
Yeah. She found a system that mandated failure to protect its own elite status. She navigated the deeply ingrained silence around domestic violence, the systemic venting of national economic anxiety through ethnic scapegoating, and the predatory academic gatekeeping that culminated in her assault.
To wrap up our deep dive today, looking at all of Fina's journey from the illusory heights of Mount Olympus to the painful realities of systemic corruption, ethnic scapegoating, and predatory power, it leaves us with a stark reality.
Which connects right back to our own lives, honestly. It's a warning that the institutions we place on pedestals often cast the longest, darkest shadows.
Exactly.
And true education sometimes means learning how the world actually works, rather than how it should work.
Which forces a reflection on how we navigate our own ambitions. Fina ultimately survives by completely abandoning the very institution that was supposed to save her. So I leave you with this final, lingering question to mull over.
What's the question?
When you are faced with deeply corrupted systems, when you pull back the wallpaper, only to find the structure you admired is fundamentally rotted, is true resilience found in staying to fight and fix them? Or does it lie in knowing exactly when to walk away, step into the dark, and forge an entirely new path?